Welcome to Lead Different.
I was so excited to interview Marshall Goldsmith that I forgot to hit record. We talked for 20 minutes, no recording, just two coaches having a conversation. And when I realized what had happened, I had two choices. I could be frustrated or I could be grateful. Because even though we lost the first 20 minutes, the last 30 minutes we recorded were so rich, so honest, so powerful. I knew I had to share them with you. And honestly, some of the greatest lessons happened because we weren't trying to perform. As a certified stakeholder-centered coach, getting to sit down with Marshall, the founder of stakeholder-centered coaching, was a full circle moment for me. You study someone's work, you apply their methodology, you coach the leaders you work with using his principles. And then one day you're sitting across from him. And what happens? You become the student again. If you skip to around 7 minutes and 50 seconds of the episode, you're going to see something I did not plan. As stakeholder-centered coaches, we're trained not to begin our responses with the words no, but, however. It's one of the 20 habits that Marshall teaches can hold leaders back. And what did I do? I started my answer to one of his questions with one of those words. And Marshall coached me live, not harshly, not critically, just calmly pointing it out and challenging me to breathe. And in that moment, I was reminded, no matter how long we've been doing this, no matter how much success we've had, we are still practicing. Leadership isn't about being finished. It's about being aware. Leadership is about others. One of the biggest themes that came through clearly, leadership is not about us. It's not about the coach. It's not about the leader. It's about the people we serve. Marshall shared a story about Alan Mulally, the former CEO of Ford. When someone would come to him with a suggestion, he'd always ask, is there anyone else who can answer this better than me in the organization? And if there was, he would send them there first. That's humility. That's service. That's a leader secure enough to not need to be the answer. The other thing we talked about is it worth it? And this was before we were even recording. Successful people feel the need to speak. All our lives, we've been rewarded for our ideas, for being right, for correcting. So when someone says something we disagree with, we jump in. But Marshall offered a simple solution. Before you speak, breathe and ask yourself, is it worth it? Are you correcting to help or are you correcting to prove? Sometimes the cost of being right is too high. Then we talked about adding value and its impact on ownership. One of the habits Marshall teaches is adding too much value can be bad. That sounds strange at first. Isn't adding value what we're supposed to do? But here's the example he shared. Imagine a young, enthusiastic, energetic team member who comes to you with a great idea. And as the leader, you say, that's a great idea. But what if you added this? You might improve the idea by about 5%, but you reduce ownership by 50%. You just made it yours. And ownership is far more powerful than a marginal improvement. Sometimes silence is leadership. Sometimes listening is leadership. Sometimes letting the idea stand, imperfect and owned, it's the greatest gift you can give. We also talked about something that every high achiever needs to hear. Achievement does not equal happiness. They are independent variables. You can achieve nothing and be happy. You can achieve everything and be unhappy. You can achieve everything and be happy, and you can achieve nothing and be unhappy. We've confused achievement with fulfillment. They are not the same thing. And if we don't understand that, we can chase our whole lives. Then we talked about the 3 questions every coach should ask. If you become more powerful and influential, would the world be a better place? Does self-promotion make you uncomfortable? And then the third question, the real one, what's more important, making a positive impact on the world or being comfortable? That one stood with me as a contributor, because if we want to contribute, truly contribute, we will have to get uncomfortable, not arrogant, not loud, but willing. And then there's a lesson on bad business that we talked about towards the end of the conversation. It's practical. Bad business. We all know what it is. The client who isn't motivated, the one who doesn't want to do the work, the one who drains your energy. But sometimes we take that client on anyway because we need the money. And Marshall made a powerful point. While you're working with that client, you don't have time to find a good client. There could be the perfect client who is aligned, ready, willing to pay full price, looking for you, but you're too busy. Saying no to the wrong client creates space for the right one. That's not just business strategy. That is alignment. This conversation reminded me of something I deeply believe. We are successful because of certain behaviors, but sometimes we're successful in spite of them. Leadership is about others, awareness over ego, ownership over control, impact over comfort. If you listen to this episode, don't just listen for what Marshall says. Listen for where you feel resistance. Listen for where you feel seen. And if you catch yourself starting a sentence with no, but, or however, just pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is it worth it?
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Let's go back. And you talked. We've talked a lot about humility and the importance of discipline and courage. So we were just talking about that in the example of looking in the mirror. So there's an inner battle to leadership, right? And we were just talking about the habits, the need to be right, why people sometimes sabotage themselves at the expense of being right. What is it that as a coach, what is it that coaches can do? What is it that you do as a coach to help people understand that it's okay to not be right? How do you develop those habits? I think what's important, whenever we want to break a bad habit, we want to replace it with a good one, right? So tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, what happens is, again, let's take a second example, which is probably even more common, adding too much value. You know, I'm young, I'm smart, enthusiastic. I come to you with an idea and you think it's a great idea. Rather than saying great idea, our tendency to say, that's a nice idea, why don't you add this to it? Well, the problem is the quality of the idea may go up 5%. My commitment to execute just went down 50%. It's no longer my idea, boss. Now it's your idea. It is incredibly difficult for smart, successful people not to add value. One of my coaching clients was named J.P. Garnier. He was the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline. And I said, what'd you learn from me when I was your coach? He said, you taught me one lesson, then help me have a better life, be a better leader. I said, what was it? He said, before I speak, breathe and ask one question. Is it worth it? And he said, as the CEO of this huge company, 50% of the time, you've had the discipline to stop and breathe and say, is it worth it? What do I decide? Am I right? Maybe. Is it worth it? No. So I think that's an example of what you're talking about. It's a small discipline, but it's not really small. Before you speak, stop, breathe. Is it worth it? Before you correct your wife at dinner, stop, breathe. Is it worth it? Before you try to win some stupid argument, stop, breathe. Is it worth it? If you have the discipline to do this, things get a lot better.
Yeah, I love what you said there, because a lot of times, and I love this, we like to, as successful people, I think we fall in love with our own voice, right? We love to hear ourselves speak. But what happens is when we interject, or adding too much value is the principle, right? You're right. We take away that person's and it's no longer their idea. It's they no longer own it, because now you've changed it and added your stuff to it. And if it doesn't work, guess what? Oh, that was Dan's idea. It was, I was just doing what Dan told me. I had a great idea to begin with. So giving people ownership, and truly giving them ownership, I say, why hire amazing people if you're going to do their job for them? Right.
Well, let me give you another example from my friend Alan, who I learned 12 tons from him when he was a CEO. He had a great discipline. And again, a simple discipline. When anyone would ask him for a suggestion, his immediate response is there anyone else in the company who can answer this question better than me? Better than I can? If the answer is yes, why don't we talk to them first?
Exactly. And then that allows them, that allows people to search for other resources, right? Because here's a thing that I've noticed with really successful leaders, they become the bottleneck in the company. Everything has to go through the CEO. So the CEO's on vacation and nothing gets done while they're gone. Right? Because they got to wait. We don't know what he's going to say, versus when you delegate responsibility, or I call it delegating authority. You learn in the military, you never delegate responsibility. It's always going to be your responsibility, but you can delegate the authority to make those decisions. You hire people to make those decisions. And then when you come back, you can make a different decision, but you let them know, hey, Marshall, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks and you're in charge. You make decisions. And when I get back, if I don't agree with those decisions, guess what? We'll sit down together and we'll change them. But for now, you're in charge. Make decisions. Let's let the company run. What's the biggest thing that holds leaders back from being able to give that kind of autonomy when they're not in the loop?
Fear.
Can you expand on that? Tell us where does that fear come from, Marshall?
I'm afraid they won't do it as well as I could.
Yeah. The number one, I think, killer, right, of that kills the growth in any company is thinking that nobody can do it as well as I can. I started the company. I'm the one that wrote the code, that originally created the product or started the service. There's nobody that can do it as well as I can. And so what's the best thing we can do as coaches, or what's the best thing a leader can do to overcome that fear?
Well, the one thing I suggest to improve the issue of empowerment or delegation is have a one-on-one dialogue with your direct reports. And in this dialogue, look at each specific area of responsibility and say, within this area of responsibility, 2 questions. Question 1, do you ever see me get more involved than I need to? And the leader, shut up, listen, take notes. Question 2, though, another important question, are there areas maybe where I need to get more involved? Because what the person may say is, yeah, over here, here, and here, I think you get too much involved. But over here, I need your help. Well, you see, there's nothing wrong with providing structure and direction where people need it. What you don't want to do is provide structure and direction where people don't need it. That's situational leadership. And then also, if you look at it, then have the leader say, do you ever see me at my level doing things at my level that I don't have to do, that other people can do? What are they? See, as a leader, you want to look for things not to do.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I talk to with the leaders I work with, Marshall, and I'd love your feedback on this. I call it the 80-20 rule, right? The Pareto principle. I want you to spend, as a leader, 80% of your time doing things you love to do that you're good at. There's some things in the organization that only Marshall Goldsmith can do. Let's make sure you spend all your time doing those things. And then everything else, let's make sure we delegate it. The last thing we want our CEO, who we're paying millions of dollars to, is doing things that they're not good at, that they don't love to do, but they're doing them because they think no one else can do them, right?
Right. I agree with you. And back to Alan's good point. Is there anyone can answer this question better than me? The reason he said that is exactly goes back to your point. If he said, have you thought of X? You know what's going to happen? He's the CEO. They're going to say, yes, sir.
Right.
See, for 9 years, I trained the admirals in the United States Navy. And what's the first thing I taught the new admirals? Your suggestions become orders. Admirals don't make suggestions.
Yeah.
An admiral makes a suggestion. What's the response? All right, sir. That suggestion's an order. So, the higher up you go, the more and more, you're 4 stars, you make a suggestion. What's everybody going to do?
Right.
Jump.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I found when I was in corporate,
breathing.
Yeah.
More coaching for you. I just said something you agreed with. What was the first word out of your mouth?
I agree.
That's not what was not the first word.
The
first word was no.
Oh, yes, that is a good coaching.
Why did you say no?
Well, it was just the way I was starting the next question.
Breathing. You don't know why you said no. Let me explain it.
Yeah, this please.
I said something you agreed with, and you said, no, I agree with you. The most common phrase by far of all successful people, when people tell us something we agree with, is no, I agree with you. Now, why don't we say, yes, I agree with you? You know why? Deep down inside, no, I agree with you means, no, Marshall, I already understood that. No, Marshall, I understood that.
Yes,
See,
I agree.
It's a bad habit.
Yes, I agree with you. No, that is perfect. And there I go using it again.
Stop. No, that is perfect.
You're absolutely right, Marshall.
No, that is perfect. You just did it again.
Yes.
And we don't hear ourselves say these things.
So what causes me to say no? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, why am I saying no? Because I'm agreeing with you.
Because
what causes us to do that?
We need to show that we're smart. We need to show that we understand things. And when somebody tells us something that we agree with, we have to point out, I already knew that. No, I agree with you means, no, Marshall, I already knew that. I know you're explaining it, but let's be clear, Marshall. I already knew that.
That is a
breathing. What'd you just say?
That is amazing. And it gets to the habits, right? That's the habits that we have to break. You're pointing it out. It's a darn habit that you start the sentence with no.
Right. And you don't even hear yourself.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you a funny story. Yeah, I got interviewed in the New York Post, right? And that's after my book came out. And the interviewer had a terrible attitude, really wise guy. And leaders are jerks. They hire some clown like me to help them. After about 5 minutes, I said, look, you're lucky you're not one of my clients. I find my clients $20 every time they start a sentence with no, but, or however. $20.
Yeah.
He goes, but Marshall, 20. I keep going. Finally, he said 80. He said, I did not say no. I said, yes, you did. He said, did not say no. You're just making me feel bad. I said, are you positive? I'm totally positive. Oh, I said, what's that little box? It's a tape recorder. Hit the tape recorder. Let's hear what you said. He listened to it. He goes, oh my God. He went home and listened to the video. He was shocked how many times he did that. And he wrote the nicest article. In his article, he said, I went into this interview. I was going to point out what a bunch of jerks they were. After listening to this interview and myself, I thought, who am I to be judging them?
That is really good. I think I've got the title for this interview. We're going to have to change the title. It's going to be Dan Gets Coached Live by Marshall on how to not start sentences with no, because that is a terrible habit. And you've said it, when we go through our training, you've said that stress reveals habits we didn't know we had. Right. Yep. And so it's not what you do when everything is going well. What do you do when you're under stress, when there's pressure on you, when you've got Marshall Goldsmith on camera and he points out, hey, hold on, Dan, you just did something that I coach. You're supposed to know not to do that. And then you catch yourself. That's brilliant. And that's just really good coaching. I can tell you've been doing this for a long time. What does it? How are we
just
supposed to learn that?
Just a couple weeks.
Yeah, just you've been doing this for a little while, right? This is fantastic, Marshall. We talk about purpose, legacy, and the why behind leadership. When you look at leaders that are late in their careers, what is the one thing that they most often wish they had paid attention to earlier?
Relationships. Look, I've interviewed many leaders who've retired, and I said, "What are you proud of?" Number one answer by far is they're proud of the people they helped. None of them have told me how big their office was, how much money they made. So basically, if you look back on it, that's all they are proud of.
Yeah, I read a book recently, Marshall, called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Yeah.
And people don't regret the things they did. They regret the things they didn't do.
Right.
The girl they didn't ask to marry, the vacation they didn't take. There was one, I don't know if you've read the book, but there's one story of a man who wanted to take his wife on a vacation, and he was going to do it as soon as he got that promotion. And then he was going to do it as soon as they moved to the new company, as soon as they launched the company, as soon as they sold the company, as soon as he retired. And then he retired and found out that his wife had cancer and she had 6 months to live, and they didn't get to take that vacation. So it's that stuff that you don't do, that you keep putting off. It was really sad, but that's a book for young people to read. I think that's a book for everyone to read, because it reminds us, like you said, it's the relationships that matter. Cultivating those relationships. What's one thing leaders can do to ensure that they're spending time on the relationships that matter most?
Talk to the people around you and ask a question. What can I do to be a better husband? What can I do to be a better father? What can I do to be a better friend, family member? Ask them.
So do your own 360-degree feedback.
Yeah. Now, I've asked. Let me ask you some questions now. Do you believe customer satisfaction is important?
Yes.
Should we ask our customers how we can be better suppliers?
Absolutely. Should
we listen?
Yes.
Have you been asking your wife how you can be a better husband?
Yes, lately. Yes, sir. I actually, I do a CEO retreat, Marshall, every year. And one of the things that we do is we talk about who we need to become in order to be who we want to be.
Right.
Right. And a lot of times in those personal goals, hey, I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. You've got to ask the people, well, what would it take? What can I do to be a better husband? And you better buckle up when you ask that question, because it's a look in the mirror.
That takes courage, humility, and discipline.
Yeah. And I think the discipline part is even harder, right? Because they will tell you the things that, here's some things you do that absolutely bother me and that I don't like. And what if it's something you really love to do, and they want you to stop doing that one thing. How can you make it about them versus about you? Yeah, that's beautiful. And we've talked about it already in terms of leadership, but it does. One of the things you talk about in the book, and I'd love to spend some time on that, you mention, and it's part of our coaching, when you get feedback from stakeholders, sometimes let's involve the spouse because they know you really well. Let them be a stakeholder.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Why is that so important, Marshall?
Well, it's not important if you don't want to be a better husband.
But it is important if you want to be a better leader overall, right?
It's not important if you don't want to be a better husband. Why do it? Look, I'm coaching human beings. I just want them to have a good life. It's part of their life. Now, if they don't want to be a better husband, okay, that's one thing. If they want to be a better husband, try to be a better husband. Yeah. And how many of them do not want to be a better husband?
Who would not want to be a better husband?
Right.
At the expense. I think when we look at leadership, right? If leadership is often about performance and outcomes, but that can feel empty over time. Right. In your experience, what's going to give that leadership meaning beyond the results?
Well, again, I think you've said it's something that's very important. Outcomes. See, I've studied a lot of Hindu philosophy and never get attached to outcomes because how much satisfaction do you get from outcomes anyway? Let's say you make all the numbers one year. What happens next year? You just get bigger numbers. I mean, one of my coaching clients was Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, a few years ago. I called him, said, "How's it going?" He said, "Pretty good. Oh, we developed this wonderful vaccine." I said, "Thank you. I took that shot. Very good." And, company profits all-time high. And he went on and on about these good things that have happened. I'm so proud of you. He said, "What?" I said, "What's your problem?" He said, "I have a huge problem. Next year, it doesn't matter how much you achieve. If you're in a publicly traded corporation, there's always next year. Achievement is important, but never worship the God of achievement."
Yeah, because there's always the next goal, right? You can always get better. There's always a higher number you can achieve. And I love the emphasis on
great Western myth is, "I'll be happy when I get the money, status, BMW, promotion, something." No, you won't.
Yeah. So how do you? So there's a great question I'd love to ask Marshall. So let's measure. How do we measure success as a corporate executive, as a company owner, as a leader? What would you say to someone who says, "I think I've got all the measurables, right? I've got the company is successful, stock price is at an all-time high. I've got the house in Florida and the house in the suburbs. How come I don't feel successful?" What's missing in that equation?
Well, I think what's missing is you're confusing success with peace, happiness, and a bunch of other variables. Achievement is important for achievement's sake, but achievement's not going to make you happy. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. Think of it that way. Achieve to achieve. Achievement's good. Be happy to be happy. You can be happy and not achieve. You can be happy and achieve. You can be miserable and not achieve. You can be miserable and achieve. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. And what happens with these people you're talking about is they confuse happiness with achievement and say, "I achieved this. Why aren't I happy?" Well, there's nothing you're going to achieve in life, nothing that's going to make you happy.
So I love that. Let's talk about that. One of the things that we've been talking about is talent. There's nothing in the world worse than unrealized talent, right? But using that talent, let's say you have a talent for finance, talent for software writing, talent for coaching, talent for leadership, right? At what point, and you said it earlier, I'd love to spend more time on that. How much money do you really need? How much do you really need to achieve, right? At a certain
I can tell you exactly how much money anyone listening needs. I can answer the question down to the penny. You know what the answer is? Enough.
Yes. I was hoping you would say that.
And only you can define enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much money you need.
Yeah,
you need enough for you.
Yeah.
So when I coach people, I say, I don't know how much money you need. Once you've got enough, you got enough. See, for me, money, I got plenty of money. Why? I have enough.
Yeah. I was reading a book by Matthew Kelly recently. He tells the story of an author who just a bunch of millionaires are in a room, but they're in a room with a bunch of billionaires. Right. And his friend tells him, that guy over there made more money on his last deal than you've made your entire life.
Right.
And a friend says, "Yeah, but you know what? He doesn't have what I have." He says, "Well, what could you have that he doesn't have?" And he said, "I have enough."
Right.
Right. And you get to a certain point and you see that in very highly successful people, billionaires, they end up giving away most of their fortune.
Of course.
Right? What are you going to do once you have everything that you need? Once you have enough, what are you going to do with the rest of it? How can you make a difference with it? And there you see that that benevolence, that charitable giving that goes up tenfold when people are really successful and they have enough. That's really good. I really appreciate you sharing that answer, Marshall. And enough is different for everyone, right?
Right. I cannot tell you what's enough for you.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Stop. What'd you just say?
I said no. That's fantastic. That is
By
fantastic.
the way, do you have a nice charity that you like?
I do. Yes.
You're going to go back and listen to this tape. And for every sentence you started with no, you're going to donate $20 to that charity.
That's a done deal. I know exactly who it's going to, and we're up to $80 already. So
We're up to at least $80.
at least $80 because we're not done
Probably
yet.
more because I just started counting halfway through.
Marshall, what is it about leadership that you would say most people don't understand? Leadership, we have leadership gurus. We have people who spend a lot of time. There's thousands of books on leadership. What's the most misunderstood concept when it comes to leadership?
Others. Paul Hersey, my old mentor, said, leadership is working with and through others to achieve objectives. The key word is others. And as you mentioned it to begin the podcast, too many leaders say, if I become a better leader, everything's going to be fine. Well, their focus is on themselves. Mm-hmm. It's not on the people. Mm-hmm. It's not about you. It's about them. Look, let me use my personal example. I got ranked #1 coach in the world for years. Nobody knows I'm a good coach. I'm sure I'm probably not the #1 coach in the world. On the other hand, I'm proud of one thing. I have the #1 clients in the world, and they say I'm a great coach. You get great clients, you win. Why am I the #1 coach? I work with great people.
Yeah.
Look, stakeholder coaching is not complicated. I'm sure you understand it as well as I do. It's not that complicated. What's the difference between me and everybody else? I get better clients.
Well, and I think one thing you've taught us, Marshall, that's really important is pick the right clients. As we talked about courage, humility, and discipline. If you choose the right clients, you're going to have successful clients.
Do you have many coaches listen to the podcast?
Oh, of course.
Let me give them some advice. To the degree humanly possible, do not take bad business. Mm-hmm. You work with people that don't care. They're not motivated. They're not going to get better, and you're going to get blamed. Don't. Right. You got to do what you got to do. If you need the money, you need the money. You got to do what you got to do. I'm not that naive. On the other hand, if you do not have to have this money, do not take bad business. It will come back and haunt you every time.
Marshall, that's great advice. I always say this: if you take on a bad client, and let's say you are in a situation where you need the money, you got to pay the bills this month, and this guy or gal is willing to pay. But if you take that client, he or she is going to take up the time that you could use for the right client that you're not going to have time to speak to because you're working so hard on this client who's not disciplined, isn't humble, and doesn't have the courage to make the changes. It's going to take the same amount of time, but they're not going to give you the fruit. And they might even, I always say that when clients ask or a potential client asks for a discount, well, can you do it for less? Well, I could, but then that means I'm going to spend as much time with you. I'm going to give you 100% of my effort. But you only want to pay me 80% of what I get when I'm probably missing out on the next client who's waiting to come work with me, but I don't have time for them because I'm working with you at 80%. So, Marshall, that's wise advice. I wanted to go back a little bit more because you've got so much experience.
Now we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, so make sure is there any one question you'd like me to finish with?
I would love for you to finish with this one question. If you had one thing to say to someone who is just starting in this business, whether they're starting as a coach, as a consultant, what's the number one thing other than becoming a Marshall Goldsmith stakeholder centered coach certified? What's the number one thing they should look at before they begin their business and the thing that they should concentrate on?
This is a great lesson for coaches. My book, What Got You Here and What's There, is about my experience with CEOs and very successful people. They have these problems: winning too much, adding too much value. Classic problems, and great for coaches to learn about these problems. These are not typically the problems of most coaches. Most coaches have another problem. I'm going to explain it. Peter Drucker taught me a wonderful lesson. He said, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to be smart, not to be right. Number one. Number two, every decision is made by the decision maker. Number three, if we need to influence someone and they're the decision maker, they don't have to buy, we have to sell. Well, coaches, I always ask them 3 questions. All you coaches, listen to these 3 questions. Now it's your time for coaching. It's going to be painful. Question number 1, coach. If you became more powerful and influential, would the world be worse off or better off? Well, huge majority of coaches, the answer is the world would be better off. 2, does self-promotion, trying to make you more powerful and influential, make you feel uncomfortable sometimes? Does it make you uncomfortable? Almost invariably, they say yes. The hard question is number 3. What's more important to you? Make a positive difference in the world or being comfortable? Get uncomfortable.
I like that. There's an old quote, there's no growth in the comfort zone and there's no comfort in the growth zone. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. That is a great way for us to finish off this interview. Marshall, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for coaching Dan Dominguez live on the air as we were conducting this interview. I had looked forward to having this conversation with you for a long time, and I was not disappointed. I want to thank Frank Wagner for introducing us, Bill Zeeb, Bill Summers, and Brandon Regard, who has been on the show. So thank you so much, Marshall. Have a great rest of your week. Those of you who are listening, if you like what Marshall had to say, we're going to put all the contact information about Marshall Goldsmith. Follow him on LinkedIn. He's got a Marshall Goldsmith AI bot that you could interact with. He is in that world.
MarshallGoldsmith.ai.
MarshallGoldsmith.ai. Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. Let's keep the leadership going. Don't forget to lead different. And Marshall, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.